Deadpool, real name Wade Wilson, is a comics character created by Rob Liefeld, who first appeared in 1991 as a Marvel supervillain mainly affiliated with the X-Men, that grew into popularity when he evolved into more of an anti-hero. He's a mentally unstable mercenary with the superhuman ability of an accelerated healing factor and physical prowess, who usually finds himself teaming up with or antagonizing the likes of Wolverine, Copycat, and Cable. Since then, due to his jokey talkative nature and tendency to break the fourth wall, eventually becoming known as the Merc with the Mouth, and with a helping hand from online bandwagon fandom, the regenerate degenerate has gone on to gain a huge audience appreciation. And after X-Men Origins Wolverine already failed at doing the character justice, and Ryan Reynolds' next attempt at breaking into superhero stardom through Green Lantern didn't exactly do well either, now he and 20th Century Fox are teaming up once again to try and bring the character to the big screen, with an appropriate R rating and a comic-accurate outfit as icing on the cake. This is a flick which fans have been asking for and anticipating for years, and Lord behold, someone finally went and actually made it. And is it any good? Yeah, it's pretty good. An entertaining watch that I'm sure will please a huge following and various casual audience members, provided they can tolerate all the in-jokes, Deadpool provides a humorous and enjoyable experience that brings the character into the mainstream and ushers in a new kind of superhero flick into Fox's wheelhouse. The character's got the gags, the suit looks terrific on screen, the movie doesn't hold back on its violence, and it's nice not only seeing Reynolds finally get to make the movie that he's been trying to get off the ground for years, but also to know that so many followers are going to be over the moon that this is even a thing that exists. And that's about as good as it gets. As fairly enjoyable as Deadpool may be, it unfortunately also plays out like the kind of box-checking fan appeasement piece which only wants to be good enough that it often feels as if we're still being denied something better in many respects. The cast all works fine, and it's refreshing to see this kind of silly, irreverent, and light-hearted tonal direction for a studio that, for the longest period, just seemed to hate the concept of colour being used in a superhero flick. But I also think that a Deadpool movie in 2016 only really offering the character at his most basic level as he jokes his way through a generic action hero plot is a Deadpool movie lacking a lot of bollocks. And it's hard not to wonder what someone with perhaps a more creative vision might have been able to do with a character that is, at his core, insane, worryingly sadistic, and has the ability to poke his head out of the frame and talk to the viewer. All three attributes of which we haven't really seen before in regards to this genre, and none of which feel utilised to their full potential. But it's clear that the crew had fun making it, Reynolds' enthusiasm is damn near infectious enough to excuse most of the flaws anyway, and to be perfectly honest, I'll happily take the kind of good but notably imperfect Fox superhero movie like this one any day over the kind of cynical, misguided, half-heartedly produced train wreck like the Fantastic Four reboot. Our story? Meet former Special Forces operative Wade Wilson, who after pursuing a relationship with a prostitute named Vanessa, played by Morena Baccarin, discovers shortly after that he has terminal cancer. But when approached by a mysterious man, he's offered the chance to take part in an experiment which will cure his illness and transform him into a superhero. Of course, the shady men turn out to be exactly that, shady men. In this case, evil, torturous bad guys with the intention of actually creating mutant slaves to do their bidding, led by Skrein Ajax. And after Wade's powers activate with the side effect of causing him to become disfigured, he decides to use his new abilities to suit up as Deadpool and get revenge. From there on out, we effectively follow the character as he shoots and slices his way to the big bad, and has a couple run-ins with X-Men members Colossus and Negasonic Teenage Warhead. Yes, she's actually called that. I'm sure it's no surprise to anyone, but Reynolds really was born to play this guy. As much as I'm not sure Wade Wilson is as well realised a character in this as he should be, Reynolds' delivery of the lines is great, and the voice he puts on when behind the mask is spot on perfect. The guy stays solid on his comedic timing too. You can just tell how much he's enjoying being here and doing this role. He carries the audience through the entire flick, and he doesn't miss a beat on the way there. And from the honest opening credits which play out like the character just snuck into the edit suite at Fox and rewrote the whole thing, I'm sure you'll know what I mean when you see it, to the inspired action sequence that kicks off the adventure involving Paul having to fight his way through a group of bad guys using only 12 bullets, to his surprisingly intelligently handled interactions with the X-Men, to the tonally confident and consistent directional debut from Tim Miller, regardless of its blandness at times, to any time the flick is outright referencing its own existence, the awkwardness of the X-Men movies, or just not giving a damn and talking to the camera in general, it damn well becomes a riot. Moments like these show just how much of an incredibly refreshing blast transcending conventions and maybe even deconstructing the genre a film like Deadpool has the potential to be. and that's the ultimate issue. From the word go, the character revels in hilarity and fourth wall wit, and then ends his glorious introduction by turning to the audience, the characters, everyone watching, and proclaiming loud and proud that this, and I quote, isn't your average superhero movie, which the film then proceeds to contradict as it flashes back to a sympathetic origin and goes forward with what becomes a conventional save the girlfriend plot. The romance is fine, but no matter how many heads Deadpool slices, it still ties him down to a heroic motivation, which can't help but go against the whole point the movie's trying to make. Overall, it just feels about one draft away from truly finding its stride. The structure's a bit weird, the location's limited, and it feels like a scene got cut where Deadpool and Colossus meet each other, considering the story takes place within the first few months of Deadpool's existence, and the two already share some sort of history. I understand that its main goal is purely for some simple laughs while poking fun at superheroes, and believe me, it is that if nothing else. But if this was just a completely irreverent, carefree movie that didn't adhere to any formulaic constraints that other flicks of the genre had been tied down to, yeah, I'd definitely be saying that this one hit the nail on the head. But Deadpool, as reasonably entertaining as it is, isn't really that kind of film, no matter how many times it might claim to be. Everything feels just a little too delicate and a little too generic. You can't help but wonder if they really did just think that fixing the problems fans previously had with the character's on-screen persona was going to cut it. We've got the R rating, and that's definitely great in concept, but the adventure doesn't feel dark enough. We've got the action, but it doesn't feel inventive enough. And as much as I'd like to go easy on the movie, considering it never really goes for the scary, psycho version of the character from the source that I latch onto more, part of what provides the whole anti-part of Deadpool's anti-hero shtick is how he can make you laugh but at any point turn around and decide to fight for the bad guys. The character here isn't so much insane, as much as the equivalent to those annoying hipsters in college that just flaunt their off-the-wall zaniness and fancy themselves the looniest guys in the room. Just because you say you're crazy doesn't actually mean you are. If you really think about it, the only real difference between the movie version of Deadpool and other action protagonists is his ability to break the fourth wall, which is why I find myself wondering why they don't push that fact further. It especially feels like big opportunities are missed when standard superhero conventions like the Stan Lee cameo actually is still restricted to just a funny in-movie cameo for a few seconds, when Lord knows I half expected the two of them to share a beer or something. There's such a huge opportunity for the movie to go completely meta with its premise, and it only ever seems to touch on it for one-off jokes. I also think that it's safe to assume at this point that the guys making these movies at Fox aren't exactly all meeting in a room to make sure that any kind of continuous timeline is being maintained or that each individual project isn't stepping on the other's toe. Considering Deadpool operates as if it magically stemmed from a parallel universe where Bryan Singer never made an X-Men film, where characters like Colossus show up looking far more like their comic book counterparts and sounding like them too, Russian accent and all, and the film just expects us to forget that the character was being played by Daniel Cudmore in 2 previous films beforehand. Having said that though, yeah, they really do rock in this, and in fact a few meta gags referencing the awkwardness of how they're the only 2 X-Men characters this film could seem to get its hands on are actually some of the film's highlights. Colossus is appropriately used as the fun, lovable moral center that Deadpool can't stand to hear, and hey, someone finally gave this guy a character too. And Wilson's interactions with Teenage Warhead are actually some of the film's cleverest bits, serving as a kind of commentary about the generational gap between the two that they both stem from. And while the villains are pretty bland, they're likeable enough and do the job just fine. I can guarantee you now that the most interesting parts of any Deadpool movie are not going to be who he fights as much as himself or whichever X-Men character they decide to team him up with next. Make no mistake too, even though some jokes are bound to fall flat when you shoot for 2 gags a minute, the movie is still funny at many points, even if it does keep shifting between clever inside humour and empty juvenile shock gags that feel specifically designed for the young 12-year-old male demographic that just loves hearing a Marvel character say the F word regardless of the context. You're probably going to hear in the coming weeks how revolutionary and industry-defining Deadpool is, and while it's true that an R-rated Fox superhero flick based on a Marvel property, which also doubles as a light-hearted X-Men tie-in, doing well critically and financially might mean exciting possibilities for the genre, I can also easily see that fact becoming the driving force overshadowing the product itself when we think back on it in years to come. Fans that enjoy the character swearing and slicing his way through his adventures, and a casual audience that just wants to chuckle at a different kind of superhero movie will be pleased, I'm sure, but from a filmmaking perspective, the whole thing just feels disappointingly safe, All of Deadpool's goals stop at simply offering up a revision of the character. There's no point being made, it doesn't push the boundaries of anything, there aren't many inventive things done with the material, and I'm not sure that the supposed risks that everyone's claiming this film makes is as much present in the product itself as it is in the decision to greenlight it in the first place. And I think it says a lot when a 45-minute straight-to-DVD animated flick feels far more satisfying as an overall piece of Deadpool fiction than the movie that bears his name. And while yes, there's a temptation to overemphasize its good points since many can argue we're lucky to have gotten a Deadpool movie at all, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it's perfect when the film at hand is far from being so. As optimistic as I can be, I also have to be as objectively level-headed in my critique as I can. It's a good film, but not a great one. Cheers for watching guys, and as always if you like this video, you can subscribe to my channel.